Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Quran Arab and Matan al-Ajrumiyyah. In the last episode, we've looked into the characteristic of ism. By now, you should be able to identify ism without understanding the meaning. The easiest way is to use the Quran Arab app, which you can download it for free from the App Store and also Google Play Store, and just use the buttons, toggle it on and off between ism, fi'il, and harf. In this video, inshallah, we're going to look into the characteristics of fi'il. What is fi'il and how do you identify fi'il in the Quran? Ibn al-Jurum mentions in his book, وَالْفِعْلُ يُعْرَفُ بِقَادْ وَالسِّينِ وَالسَّوْفَ وَالتَّاءِ التَّأْنِيثِ السَّاكِنَةِ. There are four ways to identify what a fi'il is according to Ibn al-Jurum. Now the first one is qad. Now what is qad? Qad is something that you can use on fi'il madi and fi'il mudari. And they mean differently when you use it with the different types of verbs, whether it's a past tense or a present tense. If you're going to use qad with past tense, then it means certainly, it's an emphasis. For instance, قَدْ ذَهَبْتُ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ قَدْ ذَهَبْتُ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ. That means certainly, surely, I went to the masjid. قَدْ here means surely or certainly, it's an emphasis. But if I'm going to use qad with present tense, for instance, قَدْ أَذْهَبُ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ, qad here is not an emphasis, but it means maybe. Maybe I'm going to the masjid. So, qad can mean certainly or an emphasis, or it can also mean maybe, depending on the type of verb, whether it's past tense or present tense. But one thing is sure is that whatever comes after qad is definitely a fi'il. The second one is seen, and the third one is sawfa. Now, there are differences of opinion when it comes to this based on the different madhab, whether you're Kufa or Basra, whether Kufi or Basri. So one school of thought says that between seen and sawfa, both mean in the future. So this is a future tense. But they have differences in terms of how far into the future. Seen, for instance, سأذهب إلى المسجد, that means I'm going to the masjid. I am going. This is something that is in the future. In the future, I'm going to the masjid. But seen, سأذهب, means I am going very soon. When I say سوف أذهب, that means I am going, but not very soon. It's going to be more further into the future. Now, the other school of thought opines that there are no differences between seen and sawfa. Both means in the future, and both means it can be immediate future or it can be further into the future. So if you say سأذهب إلى المسجد or سوف أذهب إلى المسجد, it doesn't make any difference according to this school of thought. But what both school of thoughts agree upon, what these two madhab agree upon, is that after seen and after sawfa, the word that comes after it is definitely a fi'il. Now the last one is ta ta'nith as-sakina. Now what is ta ta'nith as-sakina? Ta ta'nith as-sakina is the ta that comes at the end of a feminine verb. Something that is done by something that is feminine, someone that is feminine. You have to understand that in the Arabic language, feminine does not necessarily refer to only humans or animals, because inanimate objects also have a gender. Every word will have a gender. For instance, the sun. The sun is female, the moon is male. So there is a gender attached to every single thing. So when it's the object when the ta'nith sakina is to address, to show that verb is being done by a feminine. For instance, ذهبت فاطمة إلى المسجد. Fatima went to the masjid. So ذهبت, the ta that comes at the end of it, ذهب, and then you have the ta at the end of it, that is ta'nith sakina. It is to show that it is done by a feminine and it is sakina. So the word that comes before that ta'nith sakina is definitely a fi'il, is definitely a verb. Now there are more signs, there are more characteristics of fi'l than just these four. We're going to look into Quran Arab, and Quran Arab uses more than just these four. And for you can download the app Quran Arab from the App Store or the Play Store for free. And we'll now look into how do we identify fi'l in the Quran using the app. Now let's look at Surah At-Teen, which is in the 30th juz. In this surah, you look at second line, ayah number 4, Allah mentions in the Holy Quran, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. You find the word qad there. And if you tap on qad, it means indeed. You look at the whole ayah translation, it means we have certainly created man in the best of stature. So here qad means indeed. It's an emphasis. And we have learned earlier that when qad is an emphasis, it means that it is attached to a past tense verb. And also in the previous videos, we've learned that one of the characteristics of fi'l is that it has a time attached to it. It either be a past tense, present tense, or a future tense. In this case, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا خَلَقْ means خَلَقَ means created. And na, another word, although attached to khalaqa, means we. So indeed we have created. This is a past tense, so qad means it's an emphasis. If it were to be attached to a present tense, qad yakhluq means probably he created. But in this case, it is certainly he created. That is qad. You can easily differentiate by the fi'l by turning the buttons of fi'l on, and you will see that the fi'l will turn to green. Another characteristics of fi'l, according to Ibn al-Jurum, is sin. So you have Surah Al-Alaq, ayah number 18, on the last line. سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَةِ سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَةِ. You have the sin. Sa here means will. Nad'u, so the word that comes after sin is going to be a verb. It's going to be a fi'l. And we learned the two different school of thoughts, the two different madhab when it comes to seen and sawfa. One, seen means you're going to call soon, and it's not going to be too far in the future. If sawfa, it means it's going to be further in the future. Because in this ayah, the ayah before it, Allah challenges the non-believers, the kuffar, فَلْيَدْعُ نَادِيَةً. And in this ayah, Allah says, let them call his associates. And when they call the associates, Allah says immediately, سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَةِ. Not too long after that, in the future, Allah will call Zabaniya, the angels of hell. So that is an example of seen, and whatever word that follows seen is a verb, a fi'l. Another example is sawfa, and we're going to look into the example of sawfa in Surah At-Takathur. Here Allah says, ayah number 4, second line, ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. We tap on the word sawfa, will. It's something that will happen in the future. It's a future tense. Allah says, then no, you are going to know. You are going to know. تَعْلَمُونَ. Therefore, because it's the word that comes after sawfa, it is definitely a fi'l. You know that ta'lamun is a fi'l because it comes after sawfa. Alright, so those are the three examples, and the fourth one is ta'nith. It happens a lot in the Quran, but I'm going to use an example from Surah Al-Waqi'ah. Now let's open Surah Al-Waqi'ah. Alright. Surah Waqi'ah. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. You have here إِذَا, the first ayah, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. وَقَعَ, and then it has a ta at the end. If you tap on it, you see that it means occur, when the occurrence occurs. So waqi'ah is, it's not a lady or a female, but as I've mentioned earlier, that every word in the Arabic language has a gender. So waqi'ah is of the feminine gender. So waqa'at has alamatul fi'l, the signs of fi'l. You have ta at-ta'nith as-sakinah, ta which is only suffixed to the end of fi'l madi to indicate that the fa'il is a mu'annath, of feminine gender. So here, waqa'at, it's supposed to be a sakin there. So it's not supposed to be kasra, waqa'ati. But because ijtima' as-sakinain, you cannot have a ta sakin and the letter after that comes after it also a sakin in the Arabic language. So you give a kasra to it. This is a tajweed topic. I am going a bit out on a tangent, but explaining why you see a kasra. But the explanation say that it is sakina. It's originally a sakina. It is only given a kasra so that it can connect. You can read it connected to another sakin. Ijtima' as-sakinain, when the two sakin sign meets, you give one of them a kasra. So إذا وقعت الواقعة. So there you go. You have all the four signs according to Matan al-Ajrumiyyah. But the thing is, those are not the only four signs. You can see on the next page, the first line, يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون. يطوف is also a fi'il, but it doesn't have seen, sawfa, qad before it, or it doesn't have ta'nith after it. So what is the sign? You tap on it, you find that Quran Arab has a little bit more explanation to it, that it says that alamatul fi'il, that it accepts ahruf al-mudara'ah. It accepts the huruf al-mudara'ah, which is alif, nun, ya, and ta at the beginning. So a fi'il, one of the signs of it is that it can accept harf al-mudara'ah, that makes to make it a present tense. And you can also see another example here. Qul, on the second last line. Qul, again, nothing before and nothing after. So how do you know that it is a fi'il? If you tap on it, you look at the alamatul fi'il, الدلالة على الطلب, that this is a mark, especially belongs to fi'il amr, because it indicates a request or an order. When you ask someone to do something, it is a fi'il, and the sign of it is it shows that it is a sign of request. The meaning itself is a sign of request. So fi'il amr becomes a fi'il and it is a verb. So there you go. Those are some examples of fi'il in the Quran. According to Matan al-Ajrumiyyah, you will look into all the four signs, and there are other signs which you can find in Quran Arab. So that is how you identify a fi'il, by using the four identifiers mentioned in Matan al-Ajrumiyyah. Or you could also use Quran Arab app, but because there are more ways to identify a fi'il than just those four. And you have probably noticed by doing the exercises just now that identifying a fi'il is slightly harder than isim. In the next video, inshallah, we'll be looking into identifying haraf or particles. Until then, I'll see you again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.